And thank you to whoever is in this room. Um, Welcome to Greater Chicagoland Pagan Pride virtual version 2021. And the very first thing I want to do is I want to thank Twyla for organizing and keeping Pagan Pride alive and keeping us in check and doing our thing and working. So thank you for that. And I also would like to publicly say thank you to Matt, who has been for many, many years alongside Twyla, guiding us and helping us into how to do all things Greater Chicagoland Pagan Pride. And also, him taking over next year may be a smooth transition. And the other very important thing that I want to do today is a very quick land acknowledgement. So I am in Chicago. I don't know if you all are in Chicago or if you are connecting by online via Discord from other places of the world. But I want to recognize and acknowledge that we are on the land of the Potawatomi, the Menominee, and the Miami people, and many other peoples and pueblos that I don't remember the names. And there are so many to memorize, but to acknowledge that we are on the land of the original native peoples of Turtle Island, what is known as America, the continent, United States, the country, and that I am myself an indigenous person. I come from Mexico, and that is the land of the Mexica Tenochca, and is now currently known as Mexico City. So, with that said, my name is Laura Gonzalez. Thank you for being here. And today I want to, well, first of all, tell you a little bit about me. I am a Circle Sanctuary Minister. I am a Priestess of the Goddess. I am a pagan. I am a witch for hire. I offer my services to people who might need them. And most people know me also as a tarot reader and podcaster. I do podcasting and I do video blogging with Chris Allen and other local pagans, Luke Bab and Ruby Roos. We do Mystic Chat, and I have my podcasts that you may or may not be familiar. They are part of the CSMP, the Circle Sanctuary Network podcast, and they are both bilingual. The first one is called Lunatic Mondays, Lunes Lunaticos. It airs on every Monday of the month at 7 Central. And I also produce and sometimes produce content as well for Paganos del Mundo or Paganos del Mundo, Pagans of the World, a bilingual show that is on Spanish and Portuguese. I am the priestess and founder of the Fraternity of the Goddess Fortuna Temple. We are a sister temple from a temple in Mexico that is called the Fraternity of the Goddess, Goddess Temple. And I think that's it about me. This is too much. I know that's boring, but you have to do the thing to present yourself. And more than anything, I wanted to so we can have you can have any idea of who I am, what I do, and why I feel that I can teach this class or talk about uh, safe spaces for pagan practice. So I do have misophonia. I get very, very distracted with sound. So if you're here, I thank you for being here, but I have to ask you to please mute yourself. And then later we will open for Q&A. But until then, can you please mute your sound because I get very, very distracted. And it's one of those things, misophonia. If you don't know what it is, look it up. It's a really strange peculiarity. I wouldn't say it's an illness because it's not an illness. It's one of those neurodivergency things. Anyway, so why did I choose to do my workshop on safe spaces for pagan practice this year? Well, I didn't choose that. You did. I put a poll on all my social media and I asked people, what should I talk about? What should I teach about? What should I share with the community? And the general consensus was safe spaces, um, the situations with abuse of different kinds of abuse, abuse of authority, um, sometimes physical, mental, obviously, and even sexual abuse that happen. We on the pagan community are not exempt from humanity, and these are situations that happen when humans get together. No matter what kind of religion you practice, we are all exposed to be at the hands of predators. So I like to open with a statement that I read. I unfortunately I can't remember the author, but this person say, paraphrasing, nobody joins a cult, nobody joins a group where they're going to be abused. People usually join groups or organizations where they are seeking for spiritual growth, mental development, companionship, um, to have a safe space, a sacred space. So a lot of us have had situations where we join such groups to have um, a, more than anything a space to express our spirituality. And then it turns out that one person, either the member of the group or the leader of the group, the person that runs the group, turn into an abusive person. And then that, of course, turns everything to garbage. And not only you are not safe there to practice your religion or to express yourself spiritually, but then there are consequences of the abuse that have to be dealt with, such as, heavy trauma that people um, have to spend time and resources to recover from. I myself am a survivor of such situation. I was on a group here in Chicago that teaches the knowledge and wisdom of the native indigenous people of Mexico. And the teacher was with me. He was very emotionally abused and verbally abusive. And later I learned that he was also physically abusive with members of the group. And not only that he hit him, he physically will hit him, punish them, but then he will also force people to punish each other and to hit each other and or to speak insults to each other. I didn't know about that. Of course I would have left the group earlier, but you know what, nobody knows when you are in a group. Again, nobody joins a cult. People join this type of groups for personal growth, etc. So we wish that in our pagan community we wouldn't have that kind of situation, right? We generally, as pagans, we worship the earth, we worship humans, we worship humanity. We find everything to be sacred, and um, we, in paper, are very good when it comes to like diversity and respect and all of those good things. But the reality is that we are human, and there are human dynamics, there are human emotions and misconceptions that are part of the equation. So we live in a world that, whether we like it or not, is predominantly infused with a culture of misogyny and patriarchal ways. And I know some people probably hear the word misogyny and patriarchy and they're probably going to leave the room. I'm fine with that, but I invite you to stay. This is supposed to make you uncomfortable. The world already tells us that if you're not a rich, hetero, white man, then you're less than. And that comes from misogyny and that comes from patriarchy. And unfortunately, that also comes from religion. Mainstream religions have the icon of course, man who is white and old and he is to be revered as the knowing all, absolute, powerful God. And us in paganism, whether you're polytheist, atheist, or um, Gnostic, if you're pagan, you believe that the sacredness is on the earth and hopefully on everything that exists on the earth. So the world is already against us. So let's not help the world with us being against each other when we are on a pagan community or within our community. Um, with that said, I'm not talking about toxic niceness or wishful thinking. We are humans, and we can I swear? Hmm. I'm gonna swear this one time. Uh, we are gonna fuck up. All of us are gonna. And the idea is that if we do, no. The idea is that when we do, we learn from that mistake and we modify our behavior. But with that said, I'm talking mainly about people who take a role as a leader, whether you want to be a priest or a priestess or clergy or a reverend or a minister, to understand. And I love this, and it rolls very nicely when you say it in Spanish. I don't know if it will make a lot of sense to y'all when I say it in English, but one becomes a reverend to revere the community, not to be revered by the community. Yes, we all are human. Yes, we all have egos. If I didn't have an ego, I wouldn't have pretty myself up to come and give you this talk. But this is not a place for ego. Ego is not a bad thing. Ego is part of our humanity and is a regulator of our shadow self and our animal self and all that stuff that is for another class. But if you are going to take the space of being a minister or a leader or facilitator, we really have to be very conscious about our own um, shortcomings and the things that make us tick. And we have to be very conscious about how we approach people. So I will talk to you from two different perspectives: the perspective of the survivor, the perspective of the facilitator, and also coming like from a leader and my own experience, of course. Um, the majority of people that enter groups, whether it's a coven or a study group or a worship group or a full moon ritual or a drumming circle or a women's circle or whatever, we go there with an expectation, right? We go there to feel at home, to be with like-minded people, and to feel welcome. It's part of our human nature. We want to belong. We want to feel that we are welcome. And that is all wonderful and great, but we do have personalities. We do have shortcomings. So even if you get together with just one more person and you do a toast to the full moon, if it is in your place, you are responsible to keep a safe environment. So how do we keep, whether you want to be a priestess or a clergy or whether you're just a member of a group, how do we keep the peace? How do we keep a safe space? In my experience, what has worked really, really well is to make sure I separate the moments, the places, and the spaces. If you are a personal friend of mine and you know me, you know that when we are on a social gathering or social function, I will be my usual silly self and I will swear a lot. I'm sorry, but I do. I'm not sorry. I just swear a lot. Um, and I will be shooting the breeze, so to speak, and I will be goofy and, you know, happy-go-lucky Laura. And I could be very, very, very angry sometimes. There's a lot of things that anger me, and I don't hide it very well. So, I can also be crabby patty. But if you come to me with a situation where you need counseling or when you need help, I usually, and for those who know me, you know this is true. I usually ask, who do you want to talk to? Do you want to talk to the priestess? Do you want to talk to the witch for hire, the Tarot by Laura, or do you want to talk to your friend? Because if you want to talk to your friend, then we're going to gossip and we're going to shred to pieces the person that wronged you without examining anything. But if you come to me for counseling, um, for paid counsel, if you are seeking the advice of Tarot by Laura, then we will set a consultation session and I will counsel you and I will probably bring out the tarot cards or the pendulum, or we will just do a psychic reading of what is happening and then I will give you my advice. But if you come to speak to the priestess or the minister, my job is to listen to you. And my job is to create a safe space where you can express how you feel. And my only job is to listen to you and to create that safe space and to have confidentiality to what you are saying to me. So all that to explain that to me there are certain golden rules, and one of those is the confidentiality. If you are in a group where you have a priest or a priestess or people that are facilitators, and such facilitators are later sharing what you have said to them. Um, Hi, Chris, could you mute your microphone, please? And thank you. So, hi, Megan. Good to see you. Um, so, as I was saying, confidentiality to me is one of the most important things. I have had instances on a group where people have broken the confidentiality promise. It's not an oath. It's not like we're going to curse them and they will never be able to join another group. But it's just a part of honoring the space and having that confidentiality with each other, and the certainty that what is shared on circle, temple, ritual, or whatever is not something that is going to be for public consumption. But obviously, in order to have that confidentiality, as a facilitator, again, whether you're going to be a priestess that is going to facilitate for 20, 30 people, or you are joining with a friend and you together are going to go howl at the moon, it is your responsibility to state this type of situations. What are the rules of engagement, so to speak? This is confidential. And a friend of mine, Frankie, said, I don't need to pinky swear. What you tell me is confidential. Well, there might be some people in your life when you can have that kind of trust. But in this day and age of communities that pop here and there and groups that pop here and there, if there is not stated that things are going to be confidential, then don't expect confidentiality. I think that being very clear about what you are about at the moment, right? Um, you can be friends with people. You can shoot the breeze. You can go to the movies with them. You can um, have whatever levels of relationships. Hopefully not sexual, because that is a whole completely different animal. And if you are a priestess or a clergy or a minister, and even if you try to have a very good separation of your sexual relationships with one of the members of the group, whether you like it or not, there's going to be a power dynamic. And that power dynamic is going to affect uh, the group cleanliness, if you will. The dynamics are going to change. So, am I a prude? Maybe. But I really consider that if you are a priestess, having a relationship that is sexo affective will affect the group and will create some dynamics that might not be the healthiest for your group. So, go have your sexy time elsewhere. And if you're going to be a minister, then minister. That is not Tinder. That is a different that is a different app. Um, and there's nothing wrong with that. Please don't misunderstand me. Go, more power to you. Go, go have fun. But if you are a minister, a priestess, or a clergy, maybe having that within your group, not necessarily the best practice. As adult as you want to have it, as open as you want to have it, as clean as you want to have it, believe me, there will be some power dynamics that will come out of your control, and it will throw everything all topsy-turvy. And because we even if we don't want to, we start picking favorites. We play favoritism towards the people whom we are sexually attracted to. So does that mean I turn off my sexual attraction to people on the temple? Of course not. I'm human. I just don't act upon it. And how to not act upon it? Well, you do shadow work. And how do you do shadow work? Well, you meditate. You ask yourself if you really want to be a clergy, and then you decide how you're gonna go about your sexual urges and desires, and you hopefully come to terms that the temple is, or the group, or the circle is not necessarily the best place for this kind of practice. But going back to setting rules, I think that there are places and spaces for every person. I have said it before, and you can quote me on this, please, if you do hashtag. Each witch has their niche. Each witch has their niche. Each person has a place where they belong, a place that they can call family. And that doesn't mean a group is better than the other, or that a setting is better than another, or that a practice or religion or expression is more or less than the other. It just means find your group, find your place where you don't have to compromise for anything. If the clergy, if the minister, if the facilitator starts asking you to leave pieces of yourself outside of the place of practice, that is probably not the place for you. And even though that sounds a little paradoxical, when I just told you not to have sexual relationships with your group, with people in the group, I'm talking from the point of view of the minister or the priestess. People on the group that are not facilitators, do what you will. Uh, it will also could create icky dynamics, but that was mainly for facilitators. Um, but anyway, you will find your group. There are groups. And now with more groups opening online and people connecting like we are connected because COVID, um, a lot of people have come out of the shadows or out of the woodwork or out of the so-called witch broom closet, and then more groups and more communities are being established. But it is a very unfortunate telltale sign or a red flag, as they say, when a group asks you to start giving up a little bit of your personality every time you enter the circle. Oh yeah, you can come in and you can worship here, but you cannot call on this date. Or yeah, you can come here and not utilize they them pronouns. Or yeah, you can come here, but you have to wear a skirt. Or yeah, you can come here, but you cannot, I don't know, smoke. You know, those are parts of your personality, and those are parts of what makes you you. And if somebody wants you to change all of that to be able to worship around them, then what they are running is a cult and not a spiritual pagan group. And when you find, in my experience, folks, I'm telling you, I'm a survivor of a cult. The cult leader used to tell us all the time, this is not a cult. We're not a cult. We're a learning group. And if I was in a cult, I will be controlling everything you do on social media. Yeah, he didn't, but his wife spied for him on social media. And then she will come and tell him what we did. And then he will scold us and, talk about, Oh, Megan, I'm sorry. I see you. I see you knitting, so I'm going to use you as an example. He will say like, people who knit, they shouldn't be knitting when blah blah blah, and you'll be like, no, you should be knitting because you're really good at it. Yeah, thank you. Uh, so when folks ask you to really totally disrobe metaphorically of who you are, run. I cannot say this more clearly. Run, run as far as you can, because you are you, freckles and all. And if you pick your nose while you go to ritual, then you pick your nose, and there is nothing wrong with that. If a person cannot deal with that, then they are the wrong clergy for you. They are the wrong priestess or facilitator or priest, and it is okay to, as with your doctors, as with your lawyers, as with your tattoo artists, shop around. Shop around. Don't stick with the first person. Even with your therapist, you can go to therapy, please. You can go to therapy. And if your therapist doesn't feel like it's a good fit, please, for the love of the goddess, quit, hire them, and find a therapist that is good for you. And speaking of therapy, I encourage a lot of people, heavily encourage people to go to therapy. All of us have trauma. All of us, every single one of us have trauma. If you go to a group with somebody that tells you, I don't go to therapy, I have no traumas, run. Run as fast as you can. If you go to a group and somebody tells you, this is the truth, this is the absolute truth, and I am the only one that knows how to do it, run. Uh, the best, most wonderful mentors, teachers, facilitators, priestess that I have learned from are the ones that make mistakes and recognize that they make a mistake, that they made a mistake, and they learn from their mistakes and they change their behavior. There is no such thing as perfection. No minister, no clergy, no priest or priestess is perfect. And I think that going to therapy or having some kind of counseling, it's a good sign if you're trying to find a group where you're going to practice. Um, Consensus on language. Um, if you're gonna have a group and I'm gonna utilize the not inclusive language first to then move to the very inclusive language so you can see the difference and how it hits differently. If you are a clergy, a facilitator, an organizer, or a person who's looking for a group, and the flyer or the graphic says this is a group for women only because we are going to be doing a red magical bleeding menstruation blah 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 ritual is for women only. Well, that group is not for women only. That group is for people who bleed, and if you want to be inclusive, you can use the words this is a group or this is an event for women and bleeding people, and that not take anything away from people who self-identify as women, or people who are non-binary, or people who are transgender, or people who have a uterus. Having given them a piece of the pie does not take a piece of the pie from you. I know, right? What a concept. It's true. There is nothing wrong to say with saying this is for women and people who bleed. If that's your thing, that I never do that kind of group. I always have them open for everybody. And I have learned, and thank you to all my friends who are transgender, non-binary, or in any spectrum um, of the diversity of the alphabet mafia, LGBTQIA plus equal alphabet mafia, for teaching me these things. It is friendly, and it makes them more comfortable. If you are going to facilitate a group and you are open for everybody, that If you say this is for everyone, you also say this is for everyone, including trans men, trans women, members of the LGBTQ, etc., etc. Don't be afraid of using the language. Heck, I'm an ESL, and here I am talking to you about language with my big old accent. So don't be afraid, and remember the golden rule where I told you at the very beginning. All of us are gonna fuck up. Every single one of us are gonna. So the idea is that as you do it, you reel it back and you learn from it, and then you go forward. So the language inclusiveness. Don't leave it only at language. Be inclusive. Be inclusive. If you're going to open your space for people from the alphabet mafia, I say this with love because I'm one of them. I'm the Q. And I'm also, I hope this doesn't mean no disrespect to anybody, but LGBTQIA plus community. Um, not only be inclusive with language, but also be inclusive with the people. Um, I always do my little disclaimer because I teach tarot, and tarot is so binary, and tarot is so last century, and that's why it's so binary. Feminine energy, masculine energy, feminine energy, masculine energy. I always do this disclaimer. My students are going to start laughing because I usually just say insert disclaimer. So this is the disclaimer. When we talk about masculine and feminine on the tarot, we're talking about how we, tiny humans who comprehend this little about what the world is, have divided certain qualities or concepts, right? Because that's our understanding, or that was our understanding of the world back in the day. Because feminine was loving, caring, nurturing, welcoming, and masculine was assertive, direct, and intense. And we all know that there is no such thing on the binary of masculine and feminine qualities or attributes. But for practical purposes, I choose to say for practical purposes, we call this masculine or feminine, but we know we are not talking about gender. It took me a whole minute to tell you the disclaimer. Nobody died. That's the little extra mile you go to make sure that everybody, and I mean everybody, is welcome. And now we're gonna get into a prickly space. Don't tell a Mexican where tacos come from. Don't tell people of certain ethnicities what their ethnicity is. Don't tell people of color how people of color behave. Stay in your lane. And this is my another disclaimer. When a person from a minority tells you to stop doing this because this hurts them, the expected response is that you stop, that you give them space, and that if they are open and willing, whether immediately or later, you ask them first, you offer an apology for having done what hurt them, and then ask them, could you please let me know how can I do better? You can have two different responses. The person of the minority group can tell you, no, I'm not here to educate you. And that's that, period. Period. Or the minority person can tell you, sure, let's have a coffee and let me explain my experience, blah, blah, blah. Uh, the same goes for any minority. Which are the minorities, Laura? Anybody that is not a male, white, old Christian man. So everybody else, if you are a woman, if you have a vulva, if you are a person of color, if you are in a polyamorous relationship, if you're part of the alphabet mafia, if you're an immigrant, if you are a person with different abilities, if you're a neurodivergent person, you are considered a minority. And let me repeat, when a minority person tells you, ouch, that hurts, can you please stop doing it? Stop. Don't say, but my cousin don't say nothing. Or I have a friend who's Mexican and don't get mad at that. I, for one, I'm going to give you my kryptonite. I hate when non-Mexicans speak Spanish to me because that has been so weaponized and it tokenized those Mexicans. So when somebody comes to me like, "Hola, Laura, chica bonita," chances are I'm going to bark at you and tell you to step away from me. Um, I have that strong reaction. I don't know why. It was so weaponized against me when I just immigrated, and it's really hard for me not to react that way. Don't take it personal. We people of color are dealing with more than 300 years of discrimination. Um, Educate yourself, and unless you are fluent on your Spanish, ask first. Hey, I'm really fluent on my Spanish. Can I speak Spanish to you? The person who is the bilingual person is the person who's going to dictate how you're going to speak to them. Respect that, please. Same goes for code switching and acting like to be welcoming of fill the blank. If you want to welcome a person from the LGBTQ community, don't be acting like a diva and a queen. If you are not a diva and a queen, it's not welcoming, it's insulting. It is a caricature of people from the LGBTQ community. Not everybody on the LGBTQ community is a diva. You know, there are people who are gay and they are very, very masculine and are not appreciative of being called Krista. And, you know, I mean, there is a whole lot of extra work that comes into having welcoming safe spaces. That's why they are few and far in between. There is a lot of work that needs to be done. And if you are called to be a leader, a minister, a teacher, a clergy, a priestess, a priest, whatever, there is all this extra work that needs to happen for you to have a safe space. Um, Clear consensus on how, when, and which deities or which energies you're going to worship. And if you want to worship, say, with Bridget, it's very easy. In your invitation, write a description of what you're going to do. On this ritual, we will be honoring Goddess Bridget. Bridget is the goddess of da da da. Put a couple of links there so people know who she is. And it will be their choice if they want to come or not to worship with you. I promise you, folks, this is a true story. It happens to me. It happened to me. I used to practice at a group where there was always consensus until there was not. And this member of the group started bringing statues because his will was to worship, say, um, Venus or Aphrodite or Isis. And he will come with a statue and said, today we're going to worship Aphrodite. And people they freeze. They don't know what to do. And so they worship. And what if it's not what they're attuned with? Or they don't know that deity? Or somebody says, today we want to work with Hela. You know, and you don't even know who Hela is. I don't know who Hela is, so I'll be like, hey, can you tell me, like, what's she about? Because we don't know each other. Can you introduce us to each other? Again, it's a little extra work that you have to do, but it will create a safe space for you and for the people that come to worship with you. Of course, again, this class was intended. And it's being given from the point of view of the facilitator, but also from the point of view of the student. If that is not for you, run. You know, it's okay to be solitary. You will find your community, each which has their niche. Um, Another thing about the consensus, if there are certain deities that you will absolutely not worship, then ask before you go to the services, you know, like there are certain deities or entities that I think they are too patriarchal, too masculine for me. And as much as I love my crystal pagans and I love my interfaith friends and all that, going to Catholic Church, or going to like a crystal pagan ritual is really not my thing. So I will lovingly decline. Like, oh, thank you for inviting me, but I can go. I experienced something, and I will always admire this person that we were so ready to have ritual, and they said, you know what? I didn't take a shower this morning. I didn't take a shower this morning, she said, and I don't feel like I should be part of the ritual. And she asked if she could stay in the computer room. For those who have visited my house, mi casa, su casa, um, we usually do the ritual in the kitchen, and I have this very room, which is my computer room, which is separate my office. So that person asked me, can they, if they could stay on the office, and I'm like, sure. You know, so we did the ritual, and after the ritual, she came out, and we mingle and share as a community. But I really applaud that person for being so responsible, because she was going to be in the middle of ritual, and all she was going to be thinking is, do I stink? You know, and we have no control over how people feel. Another thing, I'm just going top of my head, so I will open for questions in about 5 minutes. Um, Trying to cover everything that I put on my chicken scratch notes. Um, if people don't want to share, sometimes in groups that are goddess groups, or more of the dynamic of like a circle type of thing, there is the moment of sharing. And sometimes people share, you know, about their week, about their month, about how it's been, about COVID, about their illnesses, or their boyfriend or girlfriend, or the breakup, or whatever. And so you go around the group, right? And people are sharing. And sometimes people don't want to share. And they don't feel confident to tell you, I don't want to share. So there you go with your extrovert. Okay, folks, we're going to be in circle. We're going to share. Please know that if you don't want to share, you can just say pass. Please know that if you don't want to share, just say pass. 12 words. I mean, that's the extra work that you have to do, is 12 words. You know, just ask the person, or stated at the beginning of the reunion. If you don't feel like sharing today, you don't have to share. Um, if you do the ritual where people speak their intent, same thing. Maybe they have an intent that is very private. They don't have to share. You know, if you are willing and able to hold a safe space for those people, your study group, temple, uh, coven, whatever, should have very good grades. Prevention is key. Prevention is key. Be preventive. If you are going to start organizing this type of things, it always helps to have a little guideline thing pre-written, where you state what you will allow or not during the ritual. I, for one, I quit smoking. I basically quit drinking. I just can't drink anymore. My body won't take it. Since I became a Reiki master teacher, nobody told me. And now I can barely have a drink. Thank you. But I love being a Reiki master teacher. Thank you for laughing, Megan. Um, but I still drink my Diet Coke, so I'm heavily addicted to it. Salud. There are some temples. There are some temples. True story. Um, I'm not looking at you, heathens, but there are some places where drinking is encouraging. I mean, drinking is part of the ritual. And they will pass the cup or pass the horn, and they will drink, and that is the main ritual. If that's your thing, please go to those groups. I, for one, me, Laura Gonzalez, the Fraternity of the Goddess, we choose not to have anything that will alter your state of mind during ritual. If you want to smoke a blunt before you come to ritual, I don't care. If you want to smoke a blunt after the ritual is over, I don't care. A lot of folks believe you shouldn't because the energies are still intertwined, blah, blah, blah. That is a personal choice. I normally will have a little drink, like a spirit, like a rum and coke or something, after the ritual, if I'm mingling with the people at my place. But when my rituals are at an open space with people that I've probably never met before, they are dry. And there are a number of reasons for it. Uh, I am not gonna lie to you and mask things. Patriarchy, misogyny, violence, it is sometimes intertwined with the unknown, with, I mean, people that you don't know. And if you allow some kind of altering the mind substances, people lose their inhibitions and they could become predatory, whether sexually, emotionally, and or physically. So yeah, it is cute to think that we pagans are not like that, but we are like that because we are human. So be preventive. If you don't want to have alcohol, or if you think that if people are smoking weed or whatever could become lethargic or violent, then put it on your set of guidelines. You know, no alcohol during ritual, no smoking weed during ritual, or no shooting heroin or whatever it is that is your drug of choice, legal or illegal. Some places that I know even ban coffee and Diet Coke. So, you know, those are the places that I don't go because I need my Diet Coke. Um, but it's stated before. So no harm, no foul, right? If I know that I can go here, but I cannot have my Diet Coke and I absolutely must have it, then I just don't go. But it lies on the side of the organizer, facilitator, priest, priestess, clergy, etc. Same goes for expectations of respect and sexual predatory behavior. Prevention is key. If you explain all these rules, if you explain all these guidelines, if you explain to the people that you're going to share space with, these are our guidelines, this is the behavior that we are expecting, that is a preventive action. And then you won't have to be dealing with consequences. However, because there is always a freaking however, if you find a place or a moment or a situation where things got out of hand and you have a predator in your midst, cut them off. Don't be afraid of asking people not to come back. Um, I have had people, this is true story, a personal experience, former student, emphasis on former, who slammed her hand on the table. As they were talking to me, they went like this on the table, and then they left the room and they slammed the door. I don't know if you know this, folks, and I'm sorry for people who have suffered abuse. I hope this is not triggering. I don't know if you know this, but when a person that is talking to you gets so violent that they have to hit something, um, those hits were intended for you. And chances are, if you let that slide, the next time they will hit you. So what happened with that person after they slammed their hand on the table and they slammed the door on my face? Immediately they received an email where they were told, we have um, zero violence policy. You are no longer welcome on our temple. Please allow us. Please don't come back. We don't want to have to escort you out. I know it sounds harsh, right? It does sound harsh. Uh, you have to be the keeper of the circle. You have to be the keeper of the space because, again, what we are trying to create is a safe space for people to express their spirituality. So when you have, this was an extreme situation that happened, you know, um, there were other power dynamics. This person was my friend, and we were supposed to be intimate friends, blah, blah, blah. But it just escalated. You know, one day she was verbally disrespectful. The next time she was a little bit more verbally disrespectful. And then the last time was when she was physically abusive, aggressive. And I said, no, I don't need that. Not as a person, me, Laura, I don't need that. But as a group, as a priestess, as a minister, we don't need that in the group. So don't be afraid to asking folks not to come back. And don't be afraid to communicate. I'm not telling you to dox people. I'm not telling you to uh, tell everybody all this to be the victim and to create gossip or witch wars. But if somebody comes and asks you, hey, this person is seeking to enter my temple, and I know they were in your temple. What happened? Inform the person from the other temple. It is not gossip. You're being preventive. And a person who abuses, chances are they will continue abusing other people in other circles. We have 10 minutes, folks, and I only see Megan. Thank you, Megan. But there are other folks here in the group, so I would like at this moment to at least have 10 minutes of Q&A. If there's anything that I haven't said that you want to ask about, please unmute yourself and speak now or forever hold your peace. Hi, Megan. Go for it.
Thank you for all of this. And I don't have a question so much as like commentary, as it is like laying out abusive leaders is so important. And knowing what all of that is how we fix this shit. Is how we have better, healthier communities, telling people it's okay to say no, to leave, and vet your leaders. All of that is so important. Thank you for this talk. It is so necessary.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you for that comment. And I miss you and I love you and you look wonderful. Is there any other comment, question, complaint, idea? Anybody else? Do, 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 do. All right, so it looks like they're up. Chris, please go ahead.
Turn on my camera. What we do in Wild Onion is we have a pre-ritual talking about making sure that people understand what's going to go on in the ritual and seeing what kind of what the magical boundaries are. We have a pre-ritual briefing, and I actually go through the entire ritual. And especially for people who have never been to one of our rituals, we kind of go through them and kind of give a little bit about what all it is about. And then there are certain places in the ritual where the congregation is allowed or encouraged to participate, specifically if they are a member of the community, but not necessarily of our grove, but wish to be in sacred space and offer offerings to their matrons or patrons. We have a space, a part in our ritual where people are allowed to do that. So in trying to be accommodating and be respectful and hospitable to those people, and also kind of as a service to the greater community, is to allow them to do that then. And we make sure that they know when that time is, and make sure we give them the ability to do that. And I remind people that there is that space, and if they don't really feel anything at the beginning of the ritual, it could very well be that in the middle of the ritual they feel differently, and that's the time when they can do it. The other thing we do to be accommodating to people and try to be inclusive is more ritually inclusive, in that we have parts on all of our rituals that are specifically written out. Much of our stuff is ad extempore, but we have some parts that are written out. And so what we do is we have those places where if somebody wants to participate, they are allowed to. And from my perspective, what's most important is I want everybody to feel like they're part of the ritual, and that they should feel included, because they're here at our fire, celebrating with us, and we want them to feel included and to leave. Even if they didn't say anything or do anything, I want them to know, and I want them to feel like they had the opportunity and they felt included, even though they actually didn't do anything. So I think that's really important. And for me specifically, having a pre-ritual briefing helps with that. A lot of my Grove members always give me grief because sometimes they say that the pre-ritual briefing is actually longer than the ritual. But I think it's so very important, especially with new people, and particularly in ADF rituals, because they are kind of different than other, standard neo-pagan rituals. So even if you're an experienced ritualist and you come to our rites, there's, and you've never been to one, there's going to be sections that you're not familiar with, and that's okay. We don't have a problem with any of that, and we try to make sure that everybody is inclusive, and so that's what we do to try and make sure that that there's at least ritual inclusive. I mean, obviously we want to have also just physical inclusion, because ADF is non-hierarchical. Well, we're not heteronormative or any of that kind of stuff. Women just as easily can lead ADF groves as anybody else. There's no limitation on heterosexuality or any of that kind of stuff. So I'm gay. A lot of the members of our grove are members of the Alphabet Mafia. So I mean, it's funny. We typically don't even talk about that at our rituals because it's just sort of understood. But there you are. So
Yeah.
thank you for having this.
Thank you. Thank you.
The other thing
You reminded me. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
the only other thing I would say is that we have ADF is also, we've had our issues too. So we're also in the process of doing a lot of workshops on consent culture specifically, because we have had issues with that in the past, even though, men and women are okay and all this other, and we're not really super heteronormative or those kinds of things. We still have power problems because we are hierarchical in a way. So that does get expressed. And so there's a class at Cherry Hill that a lot of our clergy have gone through about consent culture and workshops and things like that at our festivals to try to drive that notion home, to try and get over that, because we have had problems.
Yeah, thank you for all those input. You remind me of two things that are really, really interesting and important, so I want to mention those real quickly. The first one that is really important for me to emphasize is if people are sharing during ritual, don't offer commentary and don't allow the members to offer commentary. What does this mean? When a person is sharing during ritual, they really are digging deep into their emotional self. And if somebody comes up with a comment about it, it disrupts their zen, if you will. And the second thing that is very, very important that I want to comment, because this is the hill I will die on. Pagan time, not a cute concept. Please, let's kill pagan time. It is childish, it is irresponsible, and is disrespectful. And that token is 257. We said this was going to go from 2 to 3. I want to keep it that way. And there is a huge reason for it. Some of us folks are very, very busy. And we would like to socialize. We would like to stay together. We would like to do longer things. Not always possible. And it's not about calling people out. It's about calling people in. Again, having a description. This runs from 7 to 7:30. At 7:30, we take a 10-minute break for socializing. At 7:45, we do blah, blah, blah. I mean, break it down. It's not going to be perfect, but that will help you start turning cats into respecting times and people's schedules. I, for one, if it's not on my schedule, if it's not programmed, if it's not here on the little handheld device, my master of all things, I mean, if it is not programmed, it's not happening, and I am scheduled to the minute, literally. So let's be respectful to that as well. And let's continue this discussion, Let's not have this commentary end here. Take it to your groups, take it to your groves, take it to your pagan family, and then discuss what are better practices for a safe space in your space. I want to invite you folks to please follow me. Yes, I have to do the shameless self-promotion. My Facebook page is Tarot by Laura Gonzalez. My Instagram is Magia Cerati. I live in Facebook. Otherwise, people think I live in the real world, but that's not true. I live in Facebook. I am doing a whole lot of teaching this month. On October, I will be at Star Radio, Spirit Talk Australia Radio. That is it's actually going to be on Tuesday at 4 a.m., but it's going to be pre-recorded, so you can watch it later. I am going to be presenting at the Parliament of the World Religions. I will be on 5 different events at Parliament, so please follow that. I am also on Mystic Chat. I do my podcast, Lunatic Mondays, Lunes Lunaticos, and I will be teaching at the Farmers Market here on Back of the Yards on the 23rd about Day of the Dead. What else? And on the 28th, I will be at Winer Beer, also on Back of the Yards. And stay tuned for Circle Samhain. Surprise, surprise. Lots of events, but that you can follow all on the Tarot by Laura page. And with that, I bid you adieu. Thank you, everybody, for coming here. It was wonderful to see you. Megan don't make me do favoritisms, but hi, Megan. All right. Goodbye, folks. Thank you all for being here, and be safe. Never forget that you are loved. Bye-bye.
Thank you.